Have you ever stopped in the middle of your day, entirely overwhelmed by an exhaustion that makes absolutely no logical sense? Your bones feel undeniably heavy, your breath is shallow in your chest, and there is a quiet, thick fog settling just behind your eyes. You have slept enough, you have rested your body, yet you feel completely drained, as if your very life force is leaking through invisible cracks in your own mind. You might find yourself carrying a silent burden of guilt. You might call it laziness, a lack of willpower, or simply the natural weight of moving through time. But I am here to tell you right now, in this exact moment, it is none of those things. Breathe out that guilt. Let it drop from your shoulders. The profound, chronic tiredness you carry is not a physical failure or a flaw in your character. It is the astronomical energetic cost of maintaining an invisible hypnosis. Imagine walking into a dark theater, sitting back in a heavy velvet chair, and watching a terrifying film unfold before you. Now imagine a spell is cast upon you, so absolute and hypnotic that you forget you are the silent observer sitting safely in the chair. You suddenly believe that you are the flickering screen itself. You believe that you are the terrifying shadows, the screaming voices, and the tragic endings flashing across the canvas. Every ounce of your vital energy is being burned, second by second, to keep this horrifying movie playing in your head, while your muscles tense and brace for impacts that are not even real. You are entirely exhausted because you have been paying the immense electrical bill for an illusion you never even chose to project. You have been reacting on autopilot, flinching at phantoms, completely absorbed by the drama and disconnected from the silent, untouchable space of who you truly are. But there is something even stranger happening behind the scenes of this daily exhaustion, because while you sit there in the dark, drained and heavy, there is a very specific, almost mechanical reason why you cannot seem to just get up and walk out of the theater. You are feeling the crushing weight of that invisible screen, and your immediate, deeply ingrained instinct is to fight back. You have been conditioned since the very moment you could understand the world to believe that every single problem requires a solution born of intense, aggressive effort. If you are physically exhausted, you are told to push through it. If your mind is racing with 1,000 terrifying scenarios, you are taught that you must forcefully think your way out of them. So you sit there wide awake at 3 in the morning, your jaw clenched, your shoulders tight, desperately trying to analyze your own anxiety. You try to dismantle your fears, digging through the endless archives of your past, trying to find the exact broken gear inside of your psyche, so you can finally fix it. You read the heavy books, you practice the endless routines of self-improvement, you repeat the forced affirmations, and you battle your own internal shadows with an exhausting, relentless determination. You treat your own mind like a war zone. But I want you to pause right now. Take a slow breath, look back at all those years of internal warfare, and feel the honest answer deep within your chest. Has it actually worked? Or has the deafening noise inside your head only grown louder, more complex, and more terrifying? The brutal, unspoken truth of your daily exhaustion is that the very effort you are using to fix your mind is exactly what is breaking your mind. Imagine a small, frightened creature placed inside a cold metal cage with a heavy spinning wheel in the very center. The creature wants nothing more than freedom, peace, and the open air. So, out of pure survival instinct, it steps onto the wheel and begins to run. It runs with everything it has, its tiny heart pounding violently against its ribs, its muscles burning with lactic acid, fully believing that speed and sheer effort will eventually break it out of the enclosure. But there is a cruel secret hidden beneath the floorboards. The wheel is directly attached to a massive generator, and the faster the creature runs, the more electricity it feeds into the very bars of the cage, electrifying them, making the prison completely untouchable. This is exactly what you are doing when you try to forcefully cure your own panic. Every single time you feel a wave of existential dread, and you immediately jump in to conquer it, to analyze it or to aggressively push it away, you are stepping blindly onto that spinning metal track. You are applying maximum force and desperate velocity in the exact wrong direction. The anxiety you feel is not a wild beast you need to wrestle into submission. It is a mechanical engine that runs exclusively on your attention and your resistance. When you violently fight the illusion, You are the one giving the illusion its physical mass. By desperately trying to heal your own pain through endless obsessive mental loops, you are providing the exact high-grade fuel the machine needs to keep you imprisoned. You are essentially trying to put out a roaring fire by throwing violently flammable liquid onto the flames, all while weeping and wondering why you are getting burned. I know this is a bitter realization to swallow. It shatters everything the modern world has told you about personal growth and inner strength. The realization that your own desperate desire to heal is the very thing keeping you sick is a heavy, paralyzing truth that halts all your usual defense mechanisms. It means the noble warrior stance you have taken against your own mind is not just useless, it is actively destructive. You cannot punch your way out of a thick fog, and you absolutely cannot think your way out of a mind that is sick from overthinking. You are trapped in a bizarre paradox, where your very struggle is the heavy glue binding you to the floor. So if fighting back only makes the cage stronger, and if running faster only powers the generator of your own despair, how on earth do you escape? If you cannot use effort, what is left? The answer lies in a microscopic, almost invisible flaw in the system. A tiny, quiet glitch that happens just a fraction of a second before the wheel even has a chance to start spinning. Imagine for a moment walking up to a large antique mirror in a dimly lit, silent room. You stand before the glass, looking deeply into your own eyes. You lift your right hand and perfectly, instantaneously, the glass mimics your motion. You tilt your head and the reflection follows. It is a seamless, undeniable reflection of your physical reality. But now, imagine a terrifying, impossible shift. You are standing perfectly still, breathing softly when suddenly, the reflection in the glass slowly raises its hand on its own. You stare in absolute shock as the mirror image begins to move independently. And then comes the truly chilling part. As the reflection moves its arm, you feel an overwhelming, invisible force violently pulling your actual physical arm up to match it. The reflection is no longer copying you. It is dictating your movements. It is dragging you along. You are no longer the master of your own body. You have become the helpless puppet of a phantom trapped inside the glass. This is not a dark fairy tale. This exact terrifying reversal of power is happening inside your head hundreds of times a day, and it is the very core of your unending exhaustion. It is the precise millimeter of existence where the mind violently hijacks your reality. Pay very close attention to what happens when a difficult sensation arises within you. A raw wave of energy moves through your physical body. Perhaps it is a sudden tightness in the center of your chest, a flutter in the pit of your stomach, or a shallow restriction in your breath. In its purest original form, it is just energy. It is a physical vibration, entirely devoid of meaning, completely harmless. But within a fraction of a millisecond, faster than the blink of an eye, a voice aggressively interjects. The reflection in the mirror moves. The mind swoops in, grabs that raw, neutral energy, and instantly slaps a heavy, devastating label onto it. It whispers, or sometimes screams, "This is my despair. This is the undeniable proof that I am failing. This is my anxiety returning to destroy my life." In that razor-thin micro-instant, the theft is complete. You do not even realize you have been robbed. The mind takes a simple, passing physical sensation and weaves it into an intricate, terrifying narrative about your past trauma and your doomed future. Suddenly, you are not just feeling a tight chest, you are entirely consumed by the heavy, suffocating identity of a broken person. You take ownership of the tragic narrative. You claim the despair as yours. And the moment you claim it, you give it mass weight and absolute gravity. You surrender your sovereign power to a reflection that is commanding you to suffer. This is the very architecture of the illusion. It relies on your complete blindness to this exact point of hijacking. The illusion requires you to blindly believe that the voice interpreting the feeling is the absolute truth of who you are, rather than an invasive narrator aggressively writing a horror script over a silent movie. Let us do a real-time experiment right now, in this very breath. Notice any tension you are carrying in this exact second. Notice the weight in your shoulders, the clench of your jaw, or the subtle racing of your thoughts. Now, watch closely as your mind tries to tell you a story about why that tension is there. Watch it try to name the tension. Catch it in the act. The very second you catch your mind attempting to label your raw sensation as a tragedy, the hijacking suddenly stops. The reflection freezes in the glass. You're suddenly looking right at the thief with the stolen goods in its hands. It is a profound, earth-shattering shock of consciousness to realize that the despair you have been drowning in was never truly yours to begin with. It was just a label violently glued to a passing breeze. But if this labeling voice brings you so much agony, if it constantly steals your peace and weaves nightmares out of thin air, why does it do it? What is the hidden motive of this internal narrator that simply refuses to let you exist in peace? Think about the voice inside your head right now, the one that immediately steps in when you feel overwhelmed, scared, or uncertain. It sounds remarkably like you. It carries your exact tone. It knows all of your memories, and it has a perfect map of your deepest vulnerabilities. When panic sets in, this voice immediately takes charge, whispering rapidly, saying, "We need to figure this out. We need to prepare for the worst. If we just analyze every possible disaster, we can prevent it from happening." It feels like your greatest ally. It feels like your ancient survival instinct, stepping up as a loyal guardian to shield you from the harshness of the world. But I need you to brace yourself and look very closely at the hands of this supposed protector. Imagine you own a beautiful, vast, and peaceful estate. Out of a deep, biological fear of the unknown, you decide to install an ultra-advanced, highly paranoid artificial intelligence security system. You wire every door, every window, and every hallway with sensitive sensors. You program the central computer to detect even the slightest hint of danger, to ensure you are never caught off guard. For a brief moment, you feel deeply safe. But over time, the system becomes too intelligent, too obsessive, too paranoid. It begins to perceive the gentle wind as a violent threat. It perceives the warm sunlight as a devastating fire hazard. And then, one cold, dark evening, the system looks at you, calculates the chaotic risk of your own unpredictable human emotions, and decides that you are the greatest danger to the house. The heavy steel doors suddenly slam shut. The thick deadbolts lock into place. You are locked outside in the freezing rain, shivering and confused, while the automated voice of the security system echoes from the outdoor speakers, calmly stating, "I am doing this to keep you safe." This is exactly what your internal narrator is doing to your life. This loud, dominant voice, the one constantly diagnosing your flaws, catastrophizing your future, and relentlessly dissecting your past traumas, is not your savior. It is the jailer disguised as a hero. It uses your very real biological instinct for survival to build a psychological fortress so dense, so heavy, and so restrictive that no joy, no peace, and no stillness can ever enter. It convinces you that if you stop worrying for even one single second, your whole life will instantly collapse. It creates a terrifying simulation of reality, floods your bloodstream with heavy stress hormones, makes your throat tight and your chest ache, and then bravely offers to help you fight the very monsters it just invented. Can you feel the profound betrayal in this? The deep, unsettling intellectual discomfort of realizing that the entity you have trusted to cure your pain is the exact architect of that same pain. Every time your chest tightens in the middle of a normal afternoon, every time your breath becomes shallow and rapid for no logical reason, it is not because the world is inherently dangerous in that specific moment. It is because the paranoid security system of your mind has sounded a false alarm, locking down your physical nervous system to protect you from a ghost. This is the absolute masterpiece of the illusion. It seamlessly convinces you that the frantic voice screaming about the fire is the noble firefighter, when in reality, it is the arsonist holding the match. It makes you entirely dependent on the disease for the cure. You are standing out in the cold right now, banging on the locked doors of your own mind, begging the system to let you back into a state of peace and warmth. But pleading with a paranoid machine will never open the door. You cannot negotiate with the arsonist, and you can never ask the jailer for the keys to your freedom. So, if the protector is actually the captor, what do you do when the alarms start blaring? You do not break the door down. Instead, you look closely for the hidden structural flaw in the heavy walls they built. You are standing out in the cold, staring at the imposing, impenetrable walls of the fortress your own mind has built to keep you safe. But if you run your hands along those heavy stones, right near the foundation you will feel it. A hairline fracture, a tiny, hidden crack in the very architecture of the simulation. It is a flaw so subtle, so entirely simple, that your hyper-analytical, desperately searching mind steps right over it every single day. This secret passage out of the chaos does not require you to break down the door, fight the guards, or solve the endless maze of your past traumas. It only requires one deeply subversive act, the decision to observe the storm without giving it a name. I want you to imagine that you are strapped into a chair in a dark, oppressive theater, forced to watch the most terrifying, visceral horror film ever created. The volume is turned up to a deafening roar, the sudden chaotic shrieks, the heavy thumping bass of impending doom, the relentless frantic score. It is all violently flooding your nervous system. Your heart is pounding against your ribs, your breath is shallow and jagged, your palms are slick with cold sweat, and your stomach is tied in agonizing knots. You are entirely at the mercy of the terror because the soundtrack is dictating the biological rhythm of your survival. The noise is what makes the nightmare feel so incredibly real. But then, in the dark, your fingers brush against a small, smooth, hidden button on the armrest. You press it. Instantly, the deafening noise cuts out. The theater is plunged into a thick, absolute velvety silence. Look at the screen now. The movie is still playing. The flashing, chaotic lights are still there. The terrifying entities are still swinging their claws, and the dark, looming shadows are still creeping across the walls. But without the frantic soundtrack telling you how to feel, what are they? They are absolutely nothing. They are just harmless, silent pixels dancing on a flat piece of fabric. The umbilical cord of panic has been cleanly severed. The images remain in front of you, but they can no longer reach inside your chest and twist your heart. You are no longer a helpless victim trapped inside a tragedy. You have suddenly become a calm, untouchable witness watching a silent movie. This profound shift is exactly what happens the very second you choose to look at your internal chaos without applying a label to it. Whenever a heavy, painful sensation rises up in your body, your lifelong habit is to immediately turn up the volume of the narrator. You frantically name the feeling. You call it a disaster. You call it a panic attack. You call it the undeniable proof that your life is falling apart. You weave a terrifying soundtrack around a simple biological occurrence. But what if, just for this one quiet breath, you refuse to speak its name? Let your shoulders drop. Feel the air moving slowly, rhythmically through your lungs. If there is a tightness in your chest or a nervous flutter in your stomach, just let it be there. But strip away the heavy words. Do not call it my anxiety. Do not call it my failure. Look at it in pure, unnamed silence. It is just energy. It is just a temporary floating vibration passing through the vast empty space of your awareness. The very moment you cease the labeling, you slip right through that crack in the wall. You step into a profound, untouchable sanctuary located deep within your own being. It is a quiet, expansive room inside of you where the frantic alarms and the heavy guilt simply cannot breathe. Here, the illusion loses its sharp teeth. The monsters on the screen keep thrashing, but they are completely mute, entirely powerless against your silent observation. You realize that your mind can throw 1,000 terrifying images at you, but it cannot force you to give them meaning. You breathe out, feeling the heavy, rusted armor of your own thoughts finally falling to the floor. But this simple act of silent observation does much more than just calm your racing heart. When you stop naming the nightmare and simply rest in the quiet space behind your eyes, something entirely bizarre and undeniably physical begins to happen to the very fabric of the reality surrounding you. The moment you stop naming the chaos and simply rest in that quiet, unnamed observation, a strange shift occurs not just inside the borders of your mind, but out in the tangible, heavy world around you. To truly understand why this silent witnessing is so incredibly powerful, we must step away from emotional philosophy for a moment and look directly at the cold, beautiful mechanics of the universe itself. We must look at how reality is actually constructed on a fundamental level. Science, specifically quantum physics, has been whispering a terrifying and liberating secret for decades. Reality does not exist in a solid, fixed, deterministic state until it is observed. The very act of placing your focused attention on a wave of infinite possibilities forces it to collapse into a single concrete particle. You are not a passive, helpless victim wandering through a pre-built world. You are the active engine of its creation. Think of the most advanced, graphically stunning video games created in the modern world. The digital worlds inside them are massive, containing entire universes of sprawling cities, dense forests, and endless oceans. But if you look closely at the raw code and the hardware, you realize something fascinating. The game console does not possess the processing power or the energy to generate and animate that entire universe all at once. So, it uses a brilliant trick called selective rendering. The engine only spends its electrical energy drawing and solidifying the exact specific room or landscape where the player is currently looking. Everything else behind the player, or miles away in the digital distance, remains an invisible, unformed void of pure potential code. It only becomes solid, measurable scenery when you turn your camera to look at it. The universe operates on this exact same hyper-efficient principle. Before we go deeper into how this bends the very fabric of your daily life, I want to make sure we are traveling at the exact same speed. If this is making sense to you, if you are feeling that subtle, quiet shift in your awareness, just take a brief second right now and write the words "I am the observer" in the comments below. Do not do it to please an algorithm. Do it as a physical anchor for your own mind, to prove to yourself in real time that you are awake and recognizing your own inherent power. And if you find comfort in this frequency, if you want to keep walking down these unseen paths with me, gently subscribe to this space. We are building a quiet sanctuary for those who are ready to see behind the heavy curtain of the ordinary world. Now take this rendering engine and apply it to your daily exhaustion and suffering. When you allow your hijacked mind to obsessively fixate on a tragedy, a past betrayal, or a terrifying future disaster, you are violently swinging your camera lens toward the darkest possible corner of the quantum field. You are commanding the universe's rendering engine to spend all its cosmic energy solidifying your worst fears. Your focused anxiety acts as a massive magnet, pulling the raw, unformed particles of the universe and forcing them to physically construct the exact nightmare you are so terrified of. It is not a curse from above. It is not a streak of bad luck. It is pure, neutral physics being entirely mismanaged by an automated mind. The grand illusion is convincing you that the world is inherently hostile, when in truth, the world is just obediently rendering whatever you refuse to stop looking at. You are sitting in the director's chair, using a billion-dollar cosmic supercomputer to endlessly render scenes of your own tragedy. The universe simply complies, shaping the heavy, physical reality around you to match your dark focus. But this massive, constant manipulation of quantum energy does not happen in a vacuum. Sustaining this heavy holographic projection requires an astronomical amount of power, and that power has to be pulled directly from the physical machinery of the one playing the game. This massive, constant manipulation of quantum energy, this relentless rendering of your worst fears, demands an astronomical amount of power, and that power is being siphoned directly from the delicate biological machinery of your own body. We need to talk about the physical vessel you are currently sitting in. Your body is an ancient, incredibly sensitive piece of biological hardware. It was designed to run the simple, elegant software of the present moment. It was built to process the immediate physical reality of what is right in front of you, to feel the air, to digest food, to run from a tangible predator if one suddenly appears in the wild, and then to immediately return to a state of profound, restorative rest. But right now you are forcing this delicate organic hardware to run a corrupted, heavy and chaotic simulation. You are forcing a fragile motherboard to process an endless, terrifying stream of catastrophic data. Imagine taking an older, highly sensitive computer and forcing it to run a massive, industrial-grade software program that it was never structurally designed to hold. The internal fans begin to scream. The battery drains in a matter of minutes. The core temperature violently spikes, and the delicate wires inside literally begin to warp, blister, and melt under the impossible electrical load. This is not just a poetic metaphor for how tired you feel. This is a literal, biological description of what you are violently doing to your own nervous system. Every single second you allow this mental loop to continue. Your physical body, for all its profound intelligence, has one terrifying blind spot. It cannot tell the difference between a real, physical threat standing right in front of you and a terrifying thought projected on the screen of your mind. They are processed by your biology in the exact same way. When your mind fixates on a past trauma, a financial ruin, or an imagined future disaster, the illusion becomes entirely physically real to your cells. Instantly, your brain sounds the ultimate biological alarm. It violently flushes your bloodstream with heavy acidic stress hormones. Adrenaline surges through your veins like liquid fire, making your heart hammer aggressively against your sternum. Cortisol floods your system, suppressing your immune system, shutting down cellular repair, and forcing your muscles to brace tightly for a violent physical impact that is never, ever going to come. You are chronically bathing your vital organs in a toxic chemical bath of pure panic. You are living your daily life secretly poisoned by your own misdirected survival mechanisms. This is exactly why you feel that heavy, unexplainable ache deep in your bones. This is why your jaw is locked, why your shoulders are practically tied to your ears, and why your breath is constantly trapped in a shallow flutter at the top of your throat. You are forcing your biological avatar to fight a brutal, exhausting war against invisible phantoms, 24 hours a day. Continuing to fuel this illusion is not just emotionally sad, it is biologically lethal. You are slowly, silently melting the motherboard of your own physical vehicle. The relentless electrical overload is burning out your nervous system, creating a state of pure destructive friction inside your physical shell. The warning lights are all flashing red. The tension is escalating every single day. The biological hardware is being pushed so far beyond its maximum capacity that it is literally vibrating on the edge of utter destruction. The human body simply cannot sustain this level of chemical poisoning indefinitely. Eventually, under the sheer crushing gravity of a million false alarms, the overheating system inevitably reaches its absolute breaking point. A massive, terrifying collapse occurs, bringing you entirely to your knees. But I need you to listen to me very closely right now. When that devastating breakdown finally happens, what is it exactly that is actually breaking? When that devastating breakdown finally happens, when you hit that absolute bottom of emotional and physical burnout, a profound and heavy terror usually washes over you. You look at the shattered pieces of your daily life, the sheer inability to force yourself out of bed, the sudden violent end of your motivation, and you weep. You weep because you believe with every fiber of your tired being that you have fundamentally failed. You believe that your very soul has cracked under the relentless pressure of existence, that you are permanently broken, damaged beyond all repair. The modern world has taught you to deeply fear this collapse, to hide the exhaustion, to medicate it instantly, and to view this mental breaking point as your ultimate shameful defeat. But I want you to take a deep, slow breath right now. I want you to look at those shattered pieces on the floor of your life with an entirely new set of eyes. What if that collapse was never a tragedy? What if your burnout was actually the most magnificent, liberating event of your entire existence? Think of a tired wanderer who was forced a long time ago to put on a massive, heavy suit of iron armor. Over the decades, the rust settles in, the joints stiffen, and the metal becomes unbearably heavy. Because you have worn it for so long, you have completely forgotten what your own bare skin feels like. You genuinely believe you are the heavy iron. But as the atmospheric pressure of your daily life increases, as the electrical overload of your anxiety reaches its absolute peak, the metal can no longer hold. A loud, terrifying crack echoes through your chest. The iron shatters, splitting right down the middle, falling heavily to the ground. In that violent moment of rupture, your immediate instinct is to panic, thinking your actual body is being torn apart. But look closely. Look at what is lying in ruins on the floor. If this internal, exhausted entity can break, if it can burn out, run out of energy, and collapse completely under its own weight, then logically, scientifically, and spiritually, it cannot possibly be the original, eternal you. The true, silent observer behind your eyes does not require any energy to exist. It cannot burn out. It does not rust. Therefore, the thing that just collapsed under the unbearable weight of the world was never your soul. It was a constructed character. It was a heavy, artificial avatar you built to survive, an exhausted imposter that took control of your life. It was a false king sitting on the throne of your mind, desperately trying to manage a universe it was never meant to control. Can you feel the immense oceanic relief washing over you with this realization? Let your shoulders drop completely, and let a gentle smile touch the corners of your mouth. The breakdown you were so deeply ashamed of, the burnout you thought was your greatest failure, was actually your ultimate salvation. It was the crushing gravity of the truth finally snapping the spine of the lie. The universe did not break you to punish you. It forcefully broke the heavy iron armor because the real you inside was suffocating and desperate to breathe. Your collapse was the spectacular death of the grand illusion. You did not fail. You were simply liberated from an imposter who was finally too tired to keep running. But now that the false king lies in rusted pieces on the floor, breathing his last breath, a new vital question emerges in the silence. The armor is broken, yes, but the ingrained habits of a lifetime are incredibly persistent. How do you ensure that this exhausted imposter never slowly gathers its broken pieces and attempts to climb back onto the throne of your mind? The secret to permanent sovereignty is not found in a long, drawn-out war against your thoughts, but hidden inside a tiny, almost imperceptible fraction of a second. The heavy armor of the false king lies shattered on the floor, but the invisible machinery of your mind is incredibly stubborn. It will try to rebuild the imposter out of pure, deeply ingrained habit. So, how do you stop it? The answer is the ultimate promise of our journey today. The secret to your absolute freedom is not found in a grand, sweeping war against your own psychology, nor is it found in spending years deciphering the endless complex codes of your past. The master key is entirely surgical. It is hidden inside a tiny, almost imperceptible fraction of a second. It is the profound act of catching the illusion in the exact micro-moment it tries to turn itself back on. To truly grasp this, I want you to picture an antique celluloid film projector running in a dark, dusty room. When you sit in the chair and look at the screen, you see a flawless, continuous stream of motion. You see a terrifying story unfolding without a single break. But if you walk up to the back of the room and look closely at the physical strip of film passing through the bright light of the lens, you realize the continuous motion is a complete lie. The film is actually made of hundreds of static, frozen individual photographs, and between every single photograph, there is a tiny, physical black square, a micro-interval of total darkness. The movie only works, the illusion of reality is only maintained, because the machine moves so fast that your eyes are tricked into ignoring the silent, dark spaces between the frames. Your mind operates on this exact same mechanical principle. You have been deeply conditioned to believe that your suffering, your anxiety, and your physical exhaustion are a massive, heavy, continuous river of pain. But they are not. Your thoughts, your fears, and your anguishes are just static frames flashing violently in rapid succession. Between the exact moment one anxious thought ends and the next terrifying thought begins, there is a microscopic gap. There is a natural biological fraction of a second of absolute dead silence. The grand illusion relies entirely on your inability to notice that gap. It relies on you being so intensely mesmerized by the chaotic drama on the screen that you completely forget to look for the black space between the pictures. I want you to test this right now. Lower your shoulders. Breathe out the heavy, stale air from your lungs and become very, very still. I want you to wait for your mind to produce its next anxious thought. Treat it as if you are a cat silently watching a mouse hole, waiting with total focus for the mouse to peek out. Just watch the dark space closely. Notice what happens inside your head while you are acutely waiting. There is a sudden pause, a strange suspension. In that exact fraction of a second of deep anticipation, before the thought even has a chance to form, what is there? Nothing. Total, profound emptiness. That silent gap is the millisecond of your freedom. It is the pure, unfiltered presence of the real you, entirely untouched by the noise of the world. The one who catches this has beaten the illusion. You do not need to wrestle with the terrible movie on the screen. You simply need to pull the power cord during the dark fraction of a second between the frames. By depositing your full, unbroken attention into that micro-interval of natural silence, you instantly dismantle the momentum of the panic. You literally starve the engine of its speed. The movie starts to stutter, the frames slow down, and the terrifying motion of your anxiety is suddenly exposed as nothing more than a disjointed series of harmless passing images. You have caught the machine red-handed. You have slipped into the silent void where no fear can ever be rendered. You have just discovered the surgical precision of the pause. You know how to slip between the frames and observe the silence. But the human reflexes built over decades are incredibly persistent, and inevitably, a heavy thought will sometimes fully manifest on the screen before you can catch it. In that moment, your immediate, desperate reflex will be to brace your body and forcefully repel the uncomfortable image away from you. And we must look very carefully at what actually happens to the physical mass of your suffering when you make the sudden choice to actively push back against a phantom. You have been sold a deeply destructive, exhausting myth since the very first day you decided you wanted to heal. The modern industry of self-improvement and spiritual evolution has entirely convinced you that your internal world is a brutal battlefield. You have been taught that to become whole, you must aggressively hunt down your inner demons, conquer your fears, and wage an eternal, relentless war against your own shadows. You're constantly told to crush your anxiety, defeat your depression, and fight your negative thoughts with forced, rigid positivity. So, you have spent years of your life violently pushing against the painful parts of yourself, treating your own mind like a toxic enemy that desperately needs to be eradicated. I want you to feel the heavy, crushing fatigue of that eternal struggle in your bones right now. It is utterly exhausting, is it not? This endless daily crusade to fix yourself. But look very closely and honestly at the results of this lifelong internal warfare. Have the monsters actually disappeared, or have they simply grown stronger, heavier, and more terrifyingly real with every punch you throw? Imagine you are walking through a dense, foggy jungle, and you suddenly step into a deep, hidden pit of quicksand. The heavy, wet mud instantly grips your ankles. Your biological instinct, the immediate primal surge of panic in your chest, screams at you to fight back. So you thrash violently. You kick your legs, you swing your arms, you claw frantically at the heavy earth, pouring every single ounce of your vital energy into violently repelling the mud. But there is a cold, terrifying law of physics at play in the quicksand pit. The mud itself does not drown you. Your own struggle is what drowns you. The frantic, violent friction of your thrashing creates a powerful vacuum beneath you, a heavy gravitational pull that violently drags your body deeper into the dark earth. The harder you fight to escape, the faster and deeper you are swallowed whole. This brutal physical law is the exact same mechanism operating inside the holographic architecture of your own consciousness. When an uncomfortable thought, a memory of a past trauma, or a sudden wave of panic surfaces in your mind, your deeply trained reflex is to violently reject it. You push it away, you argue with the voice, you try to distract yourself, you create intense psychological friction. But in the invisible quantum realm of your mind, friction is the exact mathematical equation that creates mass. By actively fighting the phantoms in your head, you are providing them with the heavy, dense gravity they need to actually exist. You are literally feeding them the raw material of your resistance. The grand illusion relies entirely on this toxic, eternal conflict to sustain its physical weight in your reality. It desperately needs you to keep fighting it, because your resistance is the very concrete keeping the walls of your prisons solid. What if the ultimate secret to your freedom is not becoming a better, stronger warrior, but simply dropping your heavy sword altogether? When you fall into quicksand, the only way to survive, the only way to stop sinking, is to do the absolute hardest thing imaginable for a panicked mind. You must stop moving completely. You must lay back, spread your arms, and surrender to the terrifying sensation of the mud. You must remove absolutely all friction. The exact moment you stop fighting the trap, the quicksand loses its gravitational grip, and the natural buoyancy of your physical body slowly, effortlessly lifts you to the safe surface. This is the profound ancient secret of tactical acceptance. It is the absolute dismantling of toxic self-help. You do not invite the pain in because you enjoy suffering. You stop fighting it because refusing to create friction permanently destroys its physical mass. When you simply allow the terrifying thoughts to exist without violently pushing them away, they instantly lose their gravity. They become entirely weightless. The illusion starves to death the moment you refuse to go to war with it. And once you truly master this profound art of zero-friction existence, you are suddenly brought face to face with the most staggering, beautiful, and empirical proof of who you actually are when the heavy smoke of the battlefield finally clears. When the heavy smoke of your lifelong internal battlefield finally begins to clear, and you make the radical decision to simply drop your sword and stop fighting the quicksand, you are left in a state of pure, zero-friction awareness. In this profound stillness, you are suddenly brought face to face with the most staggering, beautiful, and empirical proof of who you actually are. This is not a fragile spiritual concept or a poetic philosophy meant to temporarily soothe you. This is cold, undeniable structural logic. I want you to look very closely at the architecture of your own consciousness right now. Think about the voice in your head that has tormented you for decades, the relentless narrator that constantly criticizes your choices, replays your deepest traumas, and paralyzes you with terrifying visions of the future. Right now, in this exact moment, you can hear it. You can observe it spinning its heavy tales of despair. You can watch the thoughts crossing the screen of your mind. Here is the irrefutable, magnificent premise that shatters the entire matrix of your suffering. The one who is listening to the voice cannot possibly be the voice itself. The entity that catches the thought, that observes the heavy emotion rising and falling in the chest, cannot be the thought or the emotion. If you can see the chains, you are not the chains. You are the silent, invisible witness. You are the pure awareness that exists completely independent of the noise. To truly feel the magnitude of this, imagine standing in an open field as a massive, violent, and catastrophic storm rolls over the horizon. Dark, bruised clouds block out the sun, completely smothering the light. Lightning violently tears across the atmosphere, cracking with a terrifying electrical fury, while the thunder shakes the very tectonic plates of the earth. The rain is a torrential, devastating flood. Down on the ground, everything is in absolute chaos. But I want you to tilt your head back and zoom out. Look past the clouds, past the violent flashes of light, and gaze at the vast, infinite expanse of the open sky that holds this entire storm. The lightning can flash with all of its brutal, destructive fury, but it can never, ever burn the empty space. The heavy, dark clouds can gather and thicken, but they can never crush the sky. The atmospheric pressure can drop, the winds can scream, but the infinite sky remains entirely untouched, silent and sovereign. It simply holds the weather, allowing it to pass through its vastness without ever being harmed, altered, or diminished. This is the ultimate truth of your existence. You are not the violent lightning of your panic attacks. You are not the heavy, dark clouds of your past traumas, and you are not the torrential rain of your deep depressions. You are the infinite, untouchable sky. Feel the immense oceanic weight lifting off your chest right now as you realize this. Every single trauma, every bitter tear, every ounce of heavy guilt you have been dragging behind you like dead weight, they do not define you. They never did. They are just temporary weather patterns passing through the vast, eternal space of your consciousness. You have spent your entire life believing you were the hurricane, desperately exhausting yourself trying to calm the violent winds, when all along you were the silent, immovable atmosphere that the winds were blindly blowing through. This realization is your ascension to the throne of the untouchable. Here, in this cosmic, empty space behind your eyes, the grand illusion is completely disarmed. It has no sharp edges for you to cut yourself on, no heavy gravity to crush your spirit. You are absolute, silent, boundless awareness, bathing in the profound oceanic relief that all of your worldly pain suddenly belongs to an imposter that no longer exists. But a vital, undeniable question remains lingering in this profound silence. If you are this vast, untouched sky, if you are completely immune to the storms of the mind and untethered from the heavy identity of the avatar, how do you take this magnificent ethereal power and walk back down into the demanding physical world of gravity, rules, and human existence? We have established that you are the vast, untouchable sky. But a beautiful, ethereal philosophy is entirely useless if it crumbles the second you have to pay your bills, navigate a difficult relationship, or survive the aggressive, heavy machinery of the modern world. You do not live in the clouds. You live on the dense, unforgiving surface of the earth. So how do you take this magnificent, weightless realization and force it to work for you in the brutal, three-dimensional reality of your daily life? The greatest misconception you have ever been sold is that spiritual detachment turns you into a passive, floating monk, quietly letting the world pass you by. You have been conditioned to believe that your anxiety is the very engine of your ambition, that if you let go of the heavy stress, you will lose your competitive edge, your drive to build, and your ability to defend yourself. But the truth is the exact, terrifying opposite. Living in a state of zero internal friction is not an escape from reality. It is the ultimate, most lethal competitive advantage you can possibly possess on the material board. Think of the most punishing, unforgiving video game you have ever played. When you are deeply immersed in the struggle, your heart hammers in your chest, your hands sweat, and your muscles lock in a state of rigid tension. You play with desperate, exhausting caution because every single hit damages your health bar, and every failure feels like a permanent death. But now, imagine you pause the game and enter a master code into the system. You activate God mode. You become entirely invincible. When you unpause, you are still in the exact same game. You are still walking through the same dangerous environments, executing complex missions, accumulating wealth, building massive empires, and confronting the exact same terrifying bosses. The external world has not changed one single bit. But look at your physical body now. You are leaning back in your chair. Your breath is slow, deep, and rhythmic. Your shoulders are dropped, and there is a quiet, confident smirk resting on your face. You are fighting the same monsters, but you are doing it with an effortless, fluid grace, because you know with absolute certainty that no matter how violently the enemies roar, they can never, ever drain your actual life force. This is exactly what happens when you bring the sovereign power of the silent observer down into your business, your finances, and your daily human interactions. When you walk into a high-stakes environment, a difficult negotiation, a heavy family conflict, or a moment of profound financial uncertainty, everyone else in that room is actively suffocating. They are burning massive amounts of biological energy, violently defending their fragile egos. They are operating through the heavy, blinding friction of their own panicked survival instincts. But you walk into that same room completely hacked. You are playing the game, but you are entirely unattached to the desperate need to control the outcome. Because you know that your true self cannot be harmed by a lost contract, a harsh judgment, or a temporary material failure. You stop wasting your vital energy on fear. Without that violent internal friction blinding you, your vision becomes staggeringly clear. Your decisions become razor-sharp, immediate, and terrifyingly efficient. You no longer react out of blind panic. You respond out of pure, calculated clarity. You navigate the heavy, aggressive machinery of the modern world like a phantom passing effortlessly through solid concrete walls. You engage with the illusion, you play with the pieces on the board, but you never again mistake those plastic pieces for your actual soul. You become an absolute master of the material realm precisely because you no longer belong to its heavy gravity. You build your empires, you protect your boundaries, and you conquer your daily missions not out of a desperate, heavy need to survive, but simply out of the joyful, untouchable mastery of the game itself. You are now moving through the world grounded, powerful, and deeply untouchable, hacking the three-dimensional matrix with a quiet, knowing smile. But as you walk forward in this new, invincible state, what exactly happens to the old, heavy architecture of your suffering? What happens to the terrifying structures of your past the very second you finally turn around, flood the room with light, and look the grand illusion directly in the eyes? Imagine sitting in that dark theater one last time, your heart racing as the terrifying shadow on the stage seems ready to consume your entire life. But this time, instead of running away or fighting the phantom, you calmly reach over and flip the heavy master switch on the wall. Instantly, the massive floodlights of the auditorium snap on. The darkness evaporates in a single millisecond. You look up at the stage, and the terrifying monster that kept you paralyzed in fear for decades is instantly exposed. It is nothing but painted cardboard, cheap strings, and a little bit of stage smoke. The spell is entirely broken. Once you finally see the strings, the illusion loses its structural power over you forever. You cannot unsee the truth. The heavy, invisible walls that once blocked your peace, your freedom, and your natural abundance simply disintegrate into dust before your eyes. You are left standing in the glorious, undeniable light of your own sovereignty, completely untouched and completely free. You have crossed a sacred line today, and there is no going back to the dark. If you have walked this entire path with me, and you are ready to leave the heavy armor behind, I want you to anchor this new frequency right now. Write the words, "The spell is broken," in the comments below, so I know you made it to the very end of this journey. If this resonance brought you peace and you want to continue exploring the unseen architecture of your reality, click on one of the videos appearing on your screen right now. And if you feel called to support this space and dive even deeper into this work, consider becoming a channel member to unlock our exclusive content. Breathe deeply, step out of the theater, and walk gracefully into the light of your own creation.